So, what kind of teacher were you?
I
What
was
grade?
language arts, middle school,
Okay.
language arts and social studies for the whole time, 22 years, So yeah.
All right. I went to college to
Ugh.
be I was going to be a history professor. I was going to be like the female Indiana Jones and take these long sabbaticals and go
Yeah.
hacking through the
There you
Amazon.
there you
But
go.
none of that really panned out. But I'm okay. I'm glad that it
Yeah.
didn't pan out because what I do now is much more laid back and fun.
Yeah. Good, good, good.
But I
Okay.
couldn't do middle schoolers or high schoolers. Uh,
Oh, yeah. Middle
no, so
school is a definite challenge.
yeah, you got to give me the little kids up until like third grade. Third grade's the cutoff. I don't want third graders. I want second grade and below or
Okay.
college. Those in between, that's a
Interesting.
rough crowd.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. All right. Good. Are you going to do an introduction or do you want me to just go on?
Oh, just go ahead and start.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm Ken Wortley, the author of a book entitled The Gospel of Secrets, which for some Christian folks, that's kind of an oxymoron because the gospel is supposed to be open. It's supposed to be honest. It's supposed to be truthful. And yet, my book is entitled The Gospel of Secrets. I was born in Saginaw, Michigan, in a small family. My brother and myself, my mom and dad, and they were kind of blue collar. And General Motors was the king of all kings in in Michigan, the state of Michigan. So if you needed a good job, a high paying job, you went on after high school to one of the factories. We produced steering gears. I had aspirations to go to college, and so my dad would kind of shake his head, and my mom would kind of like pat me on the shoulder and say, "Well, we hope you go to the factory with your brother." Anyways, I grew up in a small town. Saginaw is about 80,000 people, and we were a very religious family, Baptist to be more specific. And when the church was open, my dad and my mom and I and my brother were always at the church. We were important people in the church. Dad was a deacon, and mom was involved with all kinds of ministries herself. And so that's where I kind of got my religious training and my religious thirst
Was it a good
for
experience?
um hold that thought. It was a good experience. I enjoy. It was the only reality I knew.
Sure.
It was the only option that I thought in
Hmm.
life, and I was encouraged early on to think about a career in the church and become a pastor. And so my aunt and my uncle, my grandpa, and everybody who went to this church kind of encouraged little Kenny Wortley to think about being a pastor, similar to Billy Graham, who was a large evangelist who preached the word of God. I'd have to say to most religious folks and Christians, and I don't mean this as a criticism, but the word of God, the Bible, becomes more important than God himself or herself. The word of God is more important. The words are more important. So you studied the word, you knew the word, you practiced the word. The relationship with God, that was kind of secondary for me. Um, my identity was in the church. And I was a very religious young man and didn't have very many girlfriends, but a lot of females that were my friends. I wasn't really aware until kind of puberty that I was kind of developing a kind of a desire for young men, for boys. And so when I thought of those thoughts, I would immediately suppress it because I knew that the word told me that that was wrong
Right.
and that God would not create a mistake. God would not create a homosexual. So it was a mistake. So early on, I learned that my birth, my life, was was could possibly be a mistake, and so I had to keep strategies and think about keeping my life at a secret,
Mm-hmm.
keeping it keeping it hidden from other people. Um,
A lot of people struggle with that for sure.
yeah, I constructed a prison that
Mm-hmm.
that I made for myself, and there was deep expectations
Mm-hmm.
placed upon me.
Sure.
I went to high school and then thought about college, which was to my father's regret because he knew that my brother was making a lot of money at the local factory
Mm-hmm.
assembly line. So I went and applied at a school in Philadelphia, a small liberal arts college in Philadelphia, and went there and studied sociology, which was kind of interesting. Sociology and my faith began to kind of mix, and there was a social justice piece that was kind of added to my life and to my Bible that I worshiped. Um, it was interesting because as I had these urges, I made sure I kept suppressing them. And so all through growing up and in my 20s, I was always redoing my faith in God. I was always looking for healing services, for services that would help heal these urges.
Mm-hmm.
As I continued to become a an educated religious young man, I began to think about going on to seminary and becoming a minister, becoming a pastor. One fun story is that most of my childhood was directed towards being a preacher. And sometimes I would go to my aunt's house, which was a large house, and they would set up empty chairs in rows like a church. And in the back would be my aunt and my mother and their sisters all doing their ironing, and my grandfather sitting in his chairs. And me, I was directed to give a sermon, to preach to this group of people that were doing their daily chores. And I just really felt that I didn't have a time to go play and be a
Mm-hmm.
normal boy, but to be a preacher
Mm-hmm.
and to wave the Bible like famous evangelists would do. Um, I'm trying to think about my childhood. And as I grew and thought about becoming a pastor, I knew I had to find a wife that would help balance my career choice.
Was it your
Back
choice
then,
though?
good question. Yeah, it was my choice. Even though there was no other alternative, yeah, it
That's the
was
problem is that we're not really given a whole lot of choices. It's kind of
exactly.
I always talk about how in my area everybody's either a teacher, a cosmetologist, or a nurse.
Yeah,
So those are the three things, those are the three
three things.
careers of my district, I suppose you could say. And then if
Yeah,
you don't go into one of those, what are you possibly doing with your life?
exactly, exactly.
Better go to one of
I,
the
I
factories.
I entertained being a school teacher back then, but I kind of shoved that away because that wasn't as spiritual as being a pastor. That wasn't. that wouldn't please God as much. And I really think this is a good line. I really thought that Christian faith was all about pleasing God. I would try to please him as much as I could.
Hmm.
And I knew these urges that I dealt with, this these feelings that I had, this underlying belief that I was kind of a mistake, that God doesn't create homosexuals, so that couldn't even be possible. So I did a lot of praying and a lot of faith healing and a lot of evangelistic services in which I would go to and then receive Christ as my personal Lord and Savior again and again and again because I needed to do it over.
Hmm.
Maybe I didn't do the prayer well enough. Maybe I didn't think enough and to pray enough and ask for the healing enough. Um, there is a great song that Ray Boltz, my favorite Christian singer, who was very famous and made a lot of money in Christian music. And Ray then came out as a homosexual, and then it just kind of crumbled. The whole thing caved in on him. He wrote the
Like
first
his world crumbled, or like your world, whose?
his, his world crumbled because he had pleased so many devout Christians in his music
Hmm.
that him coming out as a homosexual just shattered the world for him. And they didn't want anything to do with him. They wrote a lot of prayer requests and wrote a lot of judgments against him. But he wrote his one of his first songs, which was a long time ago. Um, he wrote this song called "God Knows I Tried," and he writes these words: "When they said I was a sinner, I was struggling with my youth, and with the hope that God could change me, I believe it was the truth. So I spent my whole life trying to be what they said I should, and on the inside, I was dying because I never really could. God knows I tried. He knew all the pain I kept inside. He's seen every tear that I've ever cried. God knows I tried." He says, "I was so good at pretending, just like an actor on the stage. In the end, no one knew me, only the roles that I portrayed." Wow, I love that song. I love that song.
Hmm.
So I reconnected with Ray Bolt's music maybe 6 months ago. I haven't really talked to him personally, but I wrote to him and told him I'd like to use your music a lot, but he never said, "Yeah, go ahead, you can," or "No, you shouldn't," or whatever. But it was kind of cool. God knows I tried. I tried uh, to change constantly. That was my life. Um, as I got married, the reason why I got married was that she would be a good partner in my ministry. But the other reason, the secretive reason, was if I got married and had relations with a woman, maybe just the urges would kind of fade away in time. That I really would be a straight man the way that God created me. Um, that that really didn't happen. We went to
Yeah.
seminary. My first church was in Colorado, Canyon City, Colorado, and then from there, Portland, Oregon, and all these churches. I was still struggling with these urges. I was still struggling with who I was deep down inside.
Did you
Why
find different churches to be more welcoming or understanding of things, or were they pretty well as strict all the way around?
These were the 80s and the 90s, and no, they were not open. Um, I
I
even
remember.
I even remember preaching many sermons about marriage and family without mentioning gay marriage or same-sex marriage.
So that's the
I
problem
didn't.
with religion, though, is that it, instead of bringing people together, ostracizes a lot. Even
Yes,
earlier when you were talking about the judgments everyone had, and so they always want to pick and choose which parts that we keep and which parts that we throw away, and
yeah.
don't judge
That
lest
that
ye be judged.
you that's a good point about the scriptures that I was trying to say. The Bible, the written word, becomes the God that we worship, and the words are far more important. I had just read an article up last month about how the Revised Standard Version of the Bible was created. And in 1946, it started in 1946 with a group of people who voted and studied a single word in the book of Corinthians that meant perversion. They inserted the word homosexual in
Hmm.
1946.
They've
And I thought,
changed lots of things in the Bible throughout hundreds of years, for sure.
yes. So it wasn't until 1974 that they changed the word back to perversion. 1946 to 1974, the Revised Standard Version, which was the version that all the other branches of versions received their input. 1974, they changed it back. It took them all that time. So I was thinking, yeah, I grew up with words, powerful words that people bought into and believed. Many people still tell me, "Isn't homosexual wrong? Is it? It's in the Bible, isn't it?" And so you have to do some really hard work to think about the scriptures. Okay, so we went from Colorado to Walnut Creek, California, which was the Bay Area. There were some people in that particular church that were more open to same-sex marriages and things. And then after there, we went from there to Spokane, Washington. And I had this, and this whole time I'm kind of struggling with being who I really am. And that's why the word is the gospel of secrets, because I had all these secrets that I kept. It took a toll upon my body and my mind and my heart, for
Absolutely,
sure.
it does.
For sure, for sure.
These
Not,
emotions get stuck in your body and they cause all sorts of turmoil and stress.
yes,
I had uncles from the moment I was born. They were married. One uncle was just as much my uncle as the other one was, even though only one of them was blood related.
yeah,
And the uncle that was blood related to me was very, very deeply rooted in all of the local churches in our area.
mhm,
And he developed a very aggressive cancer in the bottom. It started in the bottom of his stomach. Are you familiar with the chakras, the chakra system and energy work?
yes, yes,
Yes?
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, where his cancer started was the same location as the chakra. So the
oh,
sacral chakra is your center of creation and sexuality.
right,
And it from there spread throughout his whole body and it did end up killing him. And
wow,
I will always believe that the fact that religion pushed back so hard on who he was fundamentally is what caused this cancer to take him from us.
yeah, of course, yes, yes, I totally agree.
But
that there
all of the
is that.
churches in the and all of the churches had "Pray for Marshall," that was his name, on the billboards, on their little signs out front. Every one of them. He was
Yeah,
such a wonderful person.
yeah, yeah. Amazing, amazing. We went to Spokane, and I had this, I don't know, I had this feeling that that would be my last church that I would serve. My energy and my emotions were just kind of depleting, and we moved to Spokane. We had had our first son in Colorado, in California, and then when we moved to Spokane, we had she gave birth to our second son. So we're developing into a family, and again, I'm thinking being a father is going to help me with my urges, with my orientation, and maybe it would fade away. That's the second time I've used
How
that.
old were you at this point?
Oh, I don't know. I was in my 50s. I was in my 50s at this
Oh
point.
wow, you had children late.
Yeah, we did. Um, we we continued in the church until I just said, okay, I I can't do this anymore. I can't lie to people. I can't get up and preach sermons that just don't make sense to me anymore. And so I began to think about being the school teacher that I thought about long time ago. So I resigned, left the church, and went back to school and got a master's in education. And I'm thinking, well, this is going to be like God's sign if I don't get a job. But like I graduated one day and landed the job the next day at a middle school and stayed at that middle school for 20 more years, you know? So, like, yeah, that was amazing for me to be a teacher, but it was still kind of politically charged. All this time, I want to say that from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, American society began to change, also began to shift.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget when somebody told me or informed me that Barry Manilow is gay, and I went, Barry Manilow, he's gay? What do you mean he's gay? I just to hear that for the first time was like amazing. So there were singers and there was athletes and there were people going on Oprah Winfrey show talking about being gay and being married and being with a straight woman. All of this, the shift began to change in our society, not the church, but the society. So I became a school teacher in Spokane, Washington, and it really was a godsend because I didn't have to play any part.
Hmm.
I I was just kind of open with all of my friends and with all of my um, teachers. And my principal one year said, "Why don't you tell your story to your kids, to your classmates?" And I thought, "Oh wow." So I did. I mentioned to them that I was gay, and it was just a different revelation for them. And there wasn't as much judgment as I thought. So some of the parents wrote and called the principal and said, "I hope this homosexual teacher doesn't start pushing his lifestyle on our kids." And I,
Hmm.
I always thought that was funny, me pushing a lifestyle on my students.
Hmm.
Um, we the marriage really began to crumble, and communication just just began to fade. And we lived in the same house, but we hardly communicated. She was always a good friend to me, but both of us knew that there was kind of an elephant in the room, and nobody really addressed it. We could smell it, we could touch it, we would walk around it, but we never addressed the word gay. It was about almost 6 months that she came down to where I was staying in the same house and said, "Can we talk?" And I thought, "Oh, this is kind of weird. We haven't talked for a long time." And she goes, "How long have you known you were gay?" And the question just kind of laid there for a while, and I was quiet. And being the honest person that I am, I said, "I'm not gay. I'm not gay." Um, Someone says, "Well, once a liar, always a liar." It's hard to begin to tell the truth when you've been lying and hiding all your life.
Hmm.
Yeah, that might be true for me. She says, until you get your act together, until you begin to think about this, I really think you should move and try to find some help in this life that you don't acknowledge. So I moved. I had never lived by myself my entire life until I found my own apartment. And I didn't like being by myself alone. So I would go to the mall and sit with people, just sit so that I would be with people. Then I would get so tired, I would go home and try to get some sleep. I thought, well, this is no way to live because I'm not a real happy individual right now. I've lost my family. I'm not a gay person. And so I was kind of stuck between those two worlds. What am I going to do? So I proceeded to go to some counselors, therapists who would listen to my story and then take out their prescription pad and write me some prescriptions for narcotics and drugs to put me to sleep and to wake me up and to help me in the daytime, to get me to work, to get me out of work. Anyway, so I had like 5 different pills that I was taking daily. And some of them were kind of addictive. So it just wasn't working. I wasn't getting any help. I was getting more and more and more depressed. And I could
Hmm.
feel my life spiraling down. And that's kind of probably where the audience can identify that kind of depression that you can't get a hold of. You can't manage your life. You can't think about how am I going to get through this. I don't have a personal friend that knows who I am. I don't have a partner that's going to help me and to think. There was nobody I could talk to. So finally, I went from counselor to counselor. Finally, I found this sweet lady in Spokane, Washington, a counselor, and she sat and drank her tea. And finally, I said, "Well, are you going to write me any prescriptions?" She said, "Oh, I don't write prescriptions." She says, "I just listen to you." And here was the key. She says, "I really want to deconstruct some of your thinking and your faith, if you'll let me. I I want to deconstruct some of your thoughts." So we began. I said, "How can I see you?" And she goes, "Every day if you want to." So I did. Every other day I was there in her office talking about my faith and beginning to see some cracks in my religion. I'm not going to say faith. I'm going to say my religion. Um, Thinking about Bible verses that just stuck and imprisoned me. Um, she gave me a huge list to read, and so I began to read um, gay theologians and gay Christians and gay people that were writing books, and so I began to devour them. And so my time, again, instead of being afraid of being alone, was taken up by reading. She also introduced the second strategy, and that is journaling. She goes, "Do you journal?" And I went, "Oh, no, 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 no. I don't journal. No, I don't do that." And she says, "Would you go out and buy a real cheap notebook and just begin to write some thoughts down? You don't have to, they don't have to be deep and they don't have to be detailed, but just begin to write about your day and about your thoughts and about things that maybe you want to discuss." So I began to realize that journaling became a way to tap my inner soul. And so, for those that are listening, try it. Try to begin to write and don't get all hung up on, am I getting the words spelled right or am I getting these sentences? Sometimes I started with just bulleting. Today I went swimming. Today I played basketball,
Mhm.
things like that. And I would detail my day. And then I began to write some emotional, spiritual things down. And so I began to take this journal with me to my sessions, and I would begin to read for her some of the things that I wrote, which was kind of good because I say, oh, I have to remember that to tell her that I'm doing that. So we together deconstruct and we reconstructed a new thoughts,
Yeah.
new faith, new
Belief system
faith.
work, shadow work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a great LGBT book written by a minister from Australia, and the title of the book is "A Life of Unlearning."
Hmm.
Wow, that's me. So I began the process of unlearning about lying
Do
and
you
hiding.
mourn what could have been?
Do I mourn? You mean the past and all
Hmm.
of how I live? Yeah,
Like
I
if
do.
things could
I
just have
agree.
been different sooner.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, of course, daily. When I began to write the book, I took all of these journals and began to write um, things down in kind of a organized way and in an outline. My partner told me, he says, I think you should write a book. And I went, I'm just not. So I did. I began to take like 20 of these journals and began to go through all of the history and begin to write the book.
So
That's
is
how
the book just it's your story?
it is my story. Talks about yeah, how I lived my life. A lot of what I'm just sharing is in the
Is it
book.
a memoir or does it
It is a memoir. Yeah. It's
okay.
the subtitle is called A Memoir of Truth, Liberation, and Love.
Okay.
Uh,
So
I hope as people buy the book and they see the book cover, and it's got a big cross on it. It's not maybe not a Christian book, but with the title "The Gospel of Secrets," I want people also to realize that it's a memoir. It's a story of one person's life of truth, liberation, and then finding love again in life. Do I mourn? Do I mourn the past? As I wrote the book, um, I have to tell you that, yeah, there was a lot of night sweats and dreams, nightmares again of all that I went through. And
what are you hoping the purpose of the book is?
the
To
purpose of the book
inspire, to
to inspire, to encourage, to be authentic in your relationships. Um, I back to thinking about my past. I do have to be honest and say I don't try to entertain the past. The Apostle Paul in
yeah.
this in the scriptures talk about I forget what lies behind and
Hmm.
I press forward. I move forward in life.
Yes.
Yes, there isn't a day goes by in which I think, wow, it would have been nice if my wife would have been supportive or encouraging, like Ray Boltz. When Ray Boltz became, when he came out, his spouse began to encourage and to write with him and to walk with him in this new phase of life that he was dealing with. Not my wife. My wife was not an encouraging kind of a person.
How long
That
were y'all married?
close to 30 years.
Oh wow. That's a
Wow,
really long time.
it is a really long time. It's a long time to be in a relationship with somebody that's not being himself.
Do
Yeah,
you think
very
that it lasted that long because religion says that divorce is wrong?
divorce. I don't know. Divorce. That wasn't that. Being gay was wrong. It
Well,
was.
I
It
know
was.
a lot of
I think.
people in my, because you know I live in the Bible Belt.
Yes.
So I grew up in Church of Christ and
Yeah.
Pentecostal and lots of strictness around all of that. And I know
Yes.
so many people who definitely should have gotten divorced a long time ago, but don't believe in divorce because they say that it's God says it's wrong. And
Yeah.
then, man, there's a whole host of people that not only that, but also don't recognize the spouse of someone who's been divorced and remarried. So they consider
Yeah.
it like even though they got a divorce and then they remarried,
Yeah.
they consider it still like cheating. Like
Yeah.
you're living with another woman. How could
Right.
you do
Yeah.
that to your husband?
Yeah. Divorce wasn't as much as the shame. Um, I just
I think
had,
shame is something that every single one of us struggles with and
yes,
is one of the biggest factors of us not stepping into our truth, not stepping into our power, not
yes,
living our life and being happy and finding fulfillment and purpose
yes.
is just always us trying to people please everyone else, which is a losing battle for sure.
Yeah, as you know, pastors are people pleasers. So they're people, they're good people, but they're also good people pleasers at all costs. Uh, um, just this past week, I lost a good, faithful friend, professor in college, from college, and his daughter wrote to me and said, "I just want to let you know that the professor died today in his sleep," and that brought all these memories back to me. Being in college for 4 years, I confided with him on many things in the 70s and the 80s. And then I stopped to think today, I never shared my personal struggle with him. What? What is that about? And it kind of disgusted me and made me angry because I cheated him by not telling him who I really was. But I shared everything with him. He was one of my best friends, but I wouldn't dare share the shame of being uh, gay with him, which is kind of so terrible to think about. That's the kind of life
You said
that
this
you
was
live.
a professor, like he was your professor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mentors, there's nothing more powerful than having a good solid mentor in your life.
Yeah.
Someone you can look up
Except,
to, someone who can guide you.
yeah, except there was a big piece, a big chunk that I
Well, you were
wouldn't
probably
share.
afraid of disappointing him.
Well, yeah, I wrote to a college friend and I said, you know what, Sue, what kind of bothers me is that I never shared with him who I was, and she goes, well, you could not afford to do that. You
Hmm.
know, back then that was the shame of your life, and to try to share it with other people, which
But
was
we
kind
also
of
can't possibly share every piece of who we are with every person that we have a relationship with. Everything's
yeah,
always compartmentalized, and you learn what topics you can this person handles these topics and can talk about
yeah,
these topics, and that's what we talk about with them. And then
yes,
this person's
yes,
who we go to for these things. Like I
yes.
don't talk about chickens and homesteading with my mom, but
Yeah,
then I don't talk about design and fashion with my dad, you know?
yeah.
So
Okay. Interesting.
all of these pieces are all of these pieces of us. there's only it's not like one piece or two pieces are bigger than any of the other pieces. It's
Yes,
just how much power we give to each and every one of them.
exactly.
That piece of you that you were always hiding is the exact same size as all of the other pieces of you. It's just the societal cultural norms and standards that were set in place made it bigger than it had to be. It never had to be any different than preferring dogs over cats.
Yes,
It,
exactly.
it's people
Yeah,
that it's the culture that makes it a big deal.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I um I did I did find a partner online. We were both English teachers, and he's Brazilian, and we really, really had a beginning of a new relationship. He wrote these words to me just just a couple months ago, and he said, "When the right person enters your life, it's not just about love. It really is about transformation. This other person, they don't bring confusion or chaos. They bring clarity and they bring calmness. They don't focus upon your past. They see the strength in your scars.
Hmm.
They inspire you to rise, to heal, and to grow into the person you were meant to be.
Hmm.
It's not just a relationship, it's a partnership in becoming your best self."
Hmm.
I like those words. I wrote them down. I kept them on my computer so I can remember that. Um, Today I live in Brazil, and my life. I just did a podcast a couple of days ago, and the woman said, "Well, is it different than where you used to be?" And I'm going, "Oh my gosh, I just described to you a whole nother person, a whole different person. I think I'm really free. I think I'm really relaxed. I'm calm. Um, do I tell lies? Not too often. Do I hide things in my secrets? Not too many days of the year that I do that anymore. I really try to live this authentic life. In the in the
Well, it
last
seems like
two,
you're still pretty shackled to the past.
well, no, no, I wouldn't say that.
Because
I wouldn't.
when you truly fully heal from the trauma of your past, it essentially ceases to be part of your story. It's not something that you spend a whole lot of time talking about because it's uninteresting to you now. You're
Right.
like, yeah, 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 that
Exactly.
happened, whatever. What's more
Yeah.
fun though is what's happening now and what's
Yes.
happening in the future. And I'm
Exactly.
going fishing and I like to scuba
Yeah.
dive.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, no, no, I would never entertain the thought that I'm shackled. Yeah, redoing this story and to write this story and doing podcast every other day. Yeah, I'm kind of reliving the past a little bit too much to talk about it. I've
Well,
talked
you don't
about it
have to.
more, yeah, more than
You
I
don't have to
have,
at all. You can get on
Yeah,
these podcasts and you can talk about anything that you want. You don't have to relive the
yeah,
past if you don't
it,
want to anymore.
exactly, exactly. Um, I in the last two pages of the book, I wrote some kind of final thoughts, and I originally called them my 10 Commandments. And my publisher went, "No, I don't want to use the word 10 Commandments. Sounds like you reverted back to being a preacher." He goes, "Let's just use the words some final thoughts." And I went,
No,
"Okay, that's boring."
you should have used the Ten Commandments. You shouldn't have let that
Yeah,
publisher push
yeah.
you around.
Anyways, I let the publisher push me around, and I here they are. I'm going to read them to you because this is the way I live my life now. The
Okay.
way I live my life now. First, I find peace in something bigger than me. I find some kind of thought about a God that is bigger than me. Every day, as I look out the window, I can see the ocean. Every day I walk on the beach, I feel that warm sand. The ocean is this enormous, giant entity in front of me. I can smell it, I can feel it, I can see it. They say if I get in a boat, I'll go straight across and hit the continent of Africa. And I have to believe that. But the ocean is huge, it's bigger than me. When I jump in, it pushes me around like I'm a paper cup.
Hmm.
Um, I think we need to find a higher power, something greater than who we are. It's so boring for people to say, I don't believe much at all. I just believe in myself. I'm going, I don't know. I think there's something bigger than you. Secondly, living generously and giving freely of who I am. My story was meant to be shared. My resources, my clothes. In Brazil, we don't wear long pants and shoes. So I brought all of these clothes that I never wear. So I'm trying and I'm still in the process of giving away a lot of my clothes and my shoes and my suits and my
And those are
ties.
deeply personal.
Yeah, but I don't need them. I have this freedom now of going through life with a bare minimum. Finally, third, nurture my physical body.
Yes.
Make it kind of a temple. Those are scriptural words that God created this temple, this body. You mentioned about disease. Um, about a year ago, I went to the doctor and he said, well, you have heart disease. You have to do surgery. So he opened me up and did these bypasses and things. So he meets me in recovery and he tells me, he goes, are you a smoker? And I said, no, never smoked. He goes, oh, you drink a lot? And not really. He goes, sometimes when I look inside someone's chest, I can see the evidence of some kind of disease. He didn't use the word disease. Some kind of an effect upon the arteries and the veins in your blood. So I said, well, I did keep a lot of life suppressed. And
Hmm.
he went, okay. Maybe. He goes, just maybe. That is the truth. I want to nurture my physical body with the kind of right foods and the right drink and
Hmm.
the right atmosphere so that from this point on this body is really the only tent that I own and really try to work on it and keep it active. Fourth, embrace the present moment. Hello, Brazil. Brazilians are people who hardly plan anything. I don't know what we're going to do Friday. We'll find out. Maybe this one, they're kind of they kind of live life the seat of their pants. So I'm kind of learning to live in this present moment right now with this gift that I'm talking to Savannah Blake and in wherever you're located. And here I am in Brazil. Um, Prioritize relationships, get to know people, love people, uh, think about what they can give you and what can happen. Build bridges of love and friendship with people. Listen with intention. Of course, being a preacher, I learned how to talk,
Yeah.
but I really had to learn to listen to
Yeah, we're
people.
supposed to do more listening than talking for sure.
Yeah, yeah, of course, of course. Uh, Next one, keep moving forward, always moving forward. Like I told you, the Apostle Paul says, I forget what lies upon, and I'm pressing on, I'm going on in life. Allow the rhythm of life to be marked by constant movement, whether it's a simple walk or a grand adventure.
A body in motion
Next,
stays in motion.
yeah, seek knowledge daily. Learn something new daily. Um, Portuguese is the language we speak here.
Okay, I
And
was wondering.
I really need to learn Portuguese every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And when I try and pronounce it, I get corrected, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But I really do need to seek knowledge every day. But most importantly, that's just about language, but to learning new concepts and new thoughts and new thinking. So after our
Well, new
podcast,
languages teach you new concepts.
yes, after our podcast, I'll be thinking about you for a good while, just to think about what did I learn from this experience with you. And finally, the next one is awake with gratitude. I have a little poster sticker that I put on my um, mirror in the morning, and it says, "Begin this day being thankful." Begin this day. Very first thing I do, get up out of bed, brush my teeth, and I look and see this on my mirror. Be thankful for today. I woke up. I wonder what today is going to be as I brush my teeth. Be thankful. Thank you, God, that I'm alive today. I wonder what's going to happen today. Number 9, cultivate forgiveness. Think about those people that have hurt you, that maybe you've hurt, and then cultivate forgiveness. And finally, the last one, number 10 of my commandments, is to live authentically with passion. With
Beautiful.
passion. Yeah, yeah. So those are my 10 thoughts. I want to say one more thing about the ocean because Brazilians have this spiritual view of the ocean. So on New Year's Eve, about 4 or 5 years ago, I began the ritual that most Brazilians do. We all go down in a very nice store-bought white shirt that we bought, brand new, and we wear it for New Year's Eve. We might drink and we might party and we might dance, but the object is to go to the beach and about 11:59, take all of your possessions and put them on the beach and walk into the water. Now, the water has some spiritual quality for a Brazilian. They're always saying, "Oh, you have a cold? Go take a bath in the ocean."
Mm-hmm. The
It's
salt, it's
kind of
cleansing.
yeah, it's kind of interesting the way Brazilian people view the ocean and the water. So
Mhm.
at 12 o'clock midnight, when everybody's celebrating and the fireworks are going on, you dive deep into the water at that split moment of a new year coming. I do that every year. The ocean now for me has become spiritual because it, of course, is bigger than me, but most importantly, there's something spiritual about it for me, which is kind of interesting. I like that. The way I live my life every single day. It's a beautiful country. I love it. I don't think I'm going to go back to the United States very soon, but who knows, you know?
Well, good. How long have you
Yeah.
been there?
7 years. This will be my
Wow. And-
seventh year. My partner moved to Spokane after the Supreme Court approved same-sex marriage. That was possible for him to move to Spokane. He loves Spokane and he loves the snow, and so every day he says, "Oh, I wish we would get snow here. Oh, I wish I could go back and be in the snow." I have no desire to be in the snow. So we have that big difference about no, I don't want to. I see videos of people slipping and sliding and driving, and I'm going, no, I don't want to do that. No, no,
I'm
no, no,
impressed that you've lived in Brazil for 7 years and you don't speak fluent Portuguese yet.
no. Thank you for that respect. Yeah, most Brazilians that I come in contact are very impatient and say to me, "How could you live in Brazil 7 years and not speak fluently?" And I
Hmm.
say, I have a thousand words, a thousand words. I know a thousand words, but I can't get it. Their language structure of their verbs are insane,
Is
just
it,
insane.
I imagine it's similar to Spanish.
You can grasp Portuguese if you speak Spanish, but don't put too much into that, Yeah,
Okay.
sometimes you run into somebody. I ran into somebody the other day from Colombia, and they were speaking Spanish. I could tell the way they pronounced their words, and I went, "Are you speaking Spanish, Espanol?" And they went, "Yeah, of course." I said, "Do you understand Portuguese?" They said, "Well, when we hear it, we do, but no, we don't. We can't do that. We can't speak Portuguese."
Hmm.
So, and you really insult Brazilians if you go up to them and say, "Hey, do you speak Spanish?" Oh my gosh, you talk about an emotional
Hmm.
response. Yeah, you're going to get it. So yeah, it's hard. It's really hard for me to
It
learn.
is.
I learn every single day a different word, a different concept. Yeah. I
Okay.
haven't taken any formal lessons. I haven't gone to a school, and there's so many online companies now that I probably could do that. But
Duolingo.
Duolingo, yeah. Duolingo
Duolingo.
is one. Duolingo I started with maybe 4 years ago, and it really did teach me a variety of words.
Hmm.
But
I've been learning.
conversation,
I've been
yeah,
learning through Duolingo. I've been learning Spanish for almost 2 years, and things are
yeah,
really starting to click well with me. So it
good.
works. You have
Yeah,
to
keep,
you have to put it in the work though. You have to
yeah,
because it takes about 3 minutes every day to like keep your streak up or whatever, and people make fun of that, and they're like, "Oh, what are you going to
yeah,
learn in 3 minutes a day?" Well, it's a
yeah,
tool like anything else, so you have to put in the
exactly,
work in to learn. You have to
exactly,
put in more than
exactly,
the 3 minutes a day. But
exactly. Yep.
so I'm curious, you said you're gonna think about what you learned from the podcast today. So tell me, what'd you learn from the podcast today?
I learned about you did a challenge to me about letting go of my past. And I'm going to think about that a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
it definitely does not have the power and the glamour it once had. And so, yeah, I'm going to think about that more and more. And like I shared with you, honestly, that when I began to do the book and open those journals again, I relived it again,
Mm-hmm.
and the power came back, and
Mm-hmm.
I did have a lot of nightmares, a lot of things to think about, put it in book form. Yeah,
Yeah. In healing, we need witnesses to our story, but there does come a point to where we're tired of repeating it.
yeah,
So whenever you get tired of repeating it, just know that you can sit it down. You can
yeah.
come on here and talk about anything you want to.
There you go. There you go. Good. So that's my story. I hope people buy the book. I hope if they want to stay in touch with me or get in touch with me, my email is createsome81 at Gmail. Create some
All
81.
right. And I think I have all of that information, so I'll link it below.
Good. Wonderful. Wonderful. Been good. It's been good. Thank you for letting me be on
Yep.
your podcast today.
All right. Happy to have you. All right. You have, well, yeah. All right.
Okay.